Hello, good morning, my friends. How are you? Welcome to another edition of Behind the Mic with me, Mike Avery, here in the Outdoor Magazine radio studio, here to record this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. I was doing some last minute things, things here, and the time kind of snuck up on me. So I might be just a few seconds late. I like to start these things exactly at 8:45, and tonight exactly at 7 o'clock. So if I was a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds late this morning, please forgive me. Shouldn't be a big deal. Hey, Tommy, good morning. How are you? Always a pleasure to have you along with us on Behind the Mic and Wednesday Night Live. Craig, buddy, good morning. How are you? Look what I got. Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. Cliff's always with us. Uncle Johnny, how you doing, buddy? Man, am I looking forward to this. There, that's better. This weekend. Going to play a little golf. Hopefully a lot of golf. Hey, Johnny? Like 18 Friday, 36 Saturday. It'll be great. It is a beautiful morning, Brad. Corey, good morning. How are you? Mike, Michigan Outdoorsman. Martin. Mike, I tell you what, you spend more time hunting or fishing than I think just about anybody I know. So congrats on that. Follow Mike online at the Michigan Outdoorsman. He posts some very cool stuff. Again, Martin, good morning. Hey, Gene, how are things out at the Apex plant? Mike Smith, good morning, buddy. How are you? I miss our skinny water, Mike. John, good morning. How are you? I tell you what, Mike, the Angler Quest is sitting at the dock and has been for a long time, and I don't even know if I'm going to make it back out. I might just pull it. Vance, I did post your pictures from the youth hunt. Good for you. You're continuing the tradition, and you know how much I respect that. Mike, good morning. Jason checking in. Where'd you go, Jason? Jason checking in from the Ford Dearborn truck plant. Captain Mark. Yeah, the youth hunt, I have strong feelings about it, and I have strong feelings about the people who complain about it. They're whiners. Bruce, good morning. Mad Jack, good morning. How are you? Brian. Jerry checking in from the Adirondacks. Gene says they're building new angler quests. Good morning, Bruce. Good morning, Brent. Good morning, John. Thanks for joining me on this edition of Behind the Mic. My name is Mike Avery. Jim checking in from Hersey. My name is Mike Avery. I'm here in the Outdoor Magazine radio studio to record this week's show. I'll tell you who's coming up here on the show in just a second. Hey, Justin, I look forward to talking with you on the radio show this week. Justin's with MUCC, MUCC.org. We're going to talk about, several things coming up here. Doug, hey, Cap, good morning. How are you? Brian says, fall is here, small game opener Friday. It gets overlooked, doesn't it? It does by me, even. And I should be, make myself a note about small game. All right, Gene, go back and make those angler quests. Hey, John Sullivan of Lure Lipstick, lurelipstick.com. Jim Felgenauer, appreciate your insight and input. The email you sent me was much appreciated. You are a very insightful guy, Jim, and I always look forward to hearing from you. Johnny Bowler, the Bear Whisperer. Johnny's having a great season. Johnny. Next year, buddy, you and me, Big Bear down. Elliot, another good guy. We got some great people on here this morning. I am blessed to have some great friends and great people who check in with me online, both in Behind the Mic and Wednesday Night Live. Another bear Johnny's got down. You and me, buddy, next year. Okay, the youth hunt numbers are out. And, people talk about all the youth hunt. They're going to shoot all the deer, and they decimate the deer population, and they shouldn't be out there when it's warm. And that's such BS. Why shouldn't the kids be out there when it's warm? Why should they have to wait until mid-November when it's cold? Why? Well, because I had to earn it. That's the way I did it. It's a different world, my friends. Oh, a nice blaze. Excellent. And Mike, isn't it interesting, Mike Wilson here, who says he loves seeing the smiling faces on these kids. Jason, good morning, buddy. It was nice seeing you Monday night. It's nice seeing these kids with smiling faces, and you'll notice they're smiling whether they shoot a little spike, a big buck, or a doe. They don't care. But speaking of numbers, The DNR has released the numbers on the youth hunt harvest, and these are numbers that are from the deer harvesting. Good morning, Cap. How are you? Johnny says, I'll be right back. This is for the youth hunt and the Liberty hunt. Now, keep in mind, I routinely call it the youth hunt, but it's also the Liberty hunt, so hunters with handicap can get out there as well. Handicappers. I hate that term. That's right, John. Let's get him started now. Hi from the UK. David, how are things in the UK? In the youth hunt / Liberty hunt, there were a total of 5,303 deer harvested over the 2-day hunt. Physically challenged. Thank you, Jim. That's a better term. Physically challenged. Yeah, I like that much better. Yeah, that's a perfect term. Physically challenged. Doesn't mean handicapped, right? Because a lot of these people who are physically challenged are pretty gutsy, and they get around. I mean, they're tough. 5,303 deer total harvested during the 2 days of the Liberty hunt. Of those, 4,153 were bucks. So you got 4-1 bucks to does. The top counties for harvests are number one. I got to put my cheaters on here. Number one, Sanilac County. 195 bucks were taken there and 28 does. That's the top county in the state. Number two was Tuscola County. Number three, Montcalm County. And number four, Saginaw County. I also find it interesting that the bottom two were extreme opposites of Michigan, both geographically and demographically. In Wayne County, there was 1 buck harvested and no does, and in Keweenaw County, there were 0 bucks harvested and 0 does. Now, not that these numbers mean anything, I just find them interesting. Tim shot his first Michigan bear opening night, Red Oak. What a rush. Very cool. Scott says the benefits of registering deer. Accurate numbers, now we know. Hey, Mike. I'm here, by the way, in the Outdoor Magazine radio studio, getting ready to record this week's show. Again, I'll tell you who's coming up on the show here shortly, but I wanted to give you the numbers from the Liberty Hunt and the Youth Hunt, which was last weekend. Now, this weekend is the special early doe season as well. So if you had complaints about the kids getting out there early, are you also going to bitch about adult hunters getting out there early this weekend? I feel like the people who complain about the youth hunt, aside from being selfish and short-sighted, are just plain negative people and they want to gripe about anything. How can you complain about kids getting out deer hunting? Maybe I'm not plugged. Are you looking for me, guys? Is that? Oh, okay. I don't get it. So in fact, I posted a video on this very subject. I was out there Saturday morning with my grandson, Carter. Carter shot a real nice doe last year at my buddy Scott's place. Scott allows us to, exactly, Jim, hoping the Bear Whisperer saves some bears for you and me both next year. I was out there with my grandson, Carter. Chad says, it's never about the kids. It's about the unethical fathers that shoot for their kids. That's BS, Chad. If you subscribe to that, I got to tell you, that's baloney. And maybe you're just saying that's what others complain about. And if so, I apologize. But the negative comment that people say, oh, it's not the kids shooting deer, it's the adults go out there and shoot deer. If somebody is such a dirtbag and a lowlife and a piece of crap that they will go out there during the youth hunt and use that as an excuse to sit in the blind with their kid and the father pull the trigger, there's no hope for those people. They're despicable. They are violators. And if they're doing that, they're also doing a bunch of other violating as well. So if people are using the youth hunt to kill the doe as an adult, they're slime in my book. Hey, Eric, how are things at Longline Charters? You're still fishing, aren't you, Eric? Jason said, of course, where'd we go? Of course, no one is going to complain because their kids aren't able to shoot their buck they've been watching all summer. I have heard that. I've heard that, too. Tyler says, I was once a kid given the opportunity to hunt for the first time in the youth hunt, and that's what sparked the crazy whitetail addiction. I, along with others, now have. Kudos to the youth that made it out this past weekend. Jim says, sorry, but I'm hats poaching. I don't know what that means, but that's poaching. Exactly, Jim. That's not using the youth hunt. That is poaching. Muskie and perch firing up. Let's get you on the show to talk about it. Eric, let's get you on the show next week. Mitchell, good morning. Hey, Jimmy, how you doing, buddy? So Carter and I went out Saturday morning. We hunted I was with him, my 16-year-old grandson. It was the last youth hunt he could be a part of. He had my Brenton 350 Legend in his hand. We were sitting over a food plot in a Wraith 270 see-through ground blind put up there by my friend Scott. I got nowhere to hunt. Well, we do have some lease property, but I didn't want to, I didn't have permission to get out there during the youth hunt. So we didn't see a deer. Now, Scott had said, I welcome you guys out here, but I want you to shoot a doe. I am a fan of making the youth hunt does only where possible for several reasons. It takes the political pressure, some political pressure off the youth hunt. Also, it teaches these kids that a big matriarchal doe is a true target. We all know it's harder to kill a 4-year-old doe than it is a 1.5-year-old buck. So I'm in favor of that. Ron said he had a good opener for geese. Greg is in Maine for a bear hunt. Excellent. Next week. Excellent. Eric says, sounds good. Excellent. Cool. Excellent. A lot of excellence this morning. So Carter didn't take a deer this year. He took a nice doe last year. He didn't take a deer this year because he had to work the rest of the weekend. And that's okay. Tyler says a mature doe is a trophy in his eyes. A mature doe is indeed a trophy in my eyes as well, Tyler. It is harder to kill an old doe than a stupid young buck. Let's see. Somebody was heading out to been hearing Mud Creek on Saginaw Bay. They've been getting some perch. If you can find perch, you're a better man than I am. I cannot find perch. Jerry says he asked a DNR officer about what do I need a license. He said, no, I'm not the hunter. Remember the conversation we had last week on Wednesday Night Live about where you need to have the recreational passport tag, and also if you can shoot a feral cat or a feral dog while you're hunting? We're going to answer those questions on this week's Ask Avery segment coming up in hour 2 of the show. And I don't, where do I have that? Somewhere. Okay. Coming up on this week's, get rid of that. Scott says, get rid of youth hunt. Opening day was a holiday. Get rid of the youth hunt. Opening day was a holiday. Get rid of the youth hunt. At a time when hunter numbers are dwindling, at a time when it's hard to get kids interested in the outdoors, at a time when kids have so many other things vying for their attention, at a time when hunting is less socially acceptable than it ever has been in the history of the state of Michigan, you want to get rid of the youth hunt. Sorry, Scott, can't support you on that one. I see him, Johnny. I just can't look at him yet. Jerry says he asked a DNR officer about whether he needs... If it is a mentored youth, the mentored youth has to be with a licensed hunter. I'm just reading some of these comments here. It's still resonating. Get rid of the youth hunt. Hey, Scott. Scott, thank you for getting your youth hunters out. Appreciate that. Apparently, you've healed up enough to go to Montana tomorrow. John says he is a 100% disabled vet. He's never hunted the Liberty Hunt because the children come first. So, John, apparently you are a fan of the youth hunt. Get rid of the youth hunt. Opening day used to be a hunt. I will agree with this, that the opening day is a firearm season does not carry the significance it used to. When I was a kid growing up on the west side of the state, November 15th was the opener of deer season because we didn't bow hunt back then. We didn't have the Liberty Hunt. We didn't have the youth hunt. We didn't have the early doe season. So I will agree that the opening, November 15th opener, has been diluted a little bit because of the other seasons. All right, Johnny, I'll talk to you later, buddy. Sorry I didn't get a chance to talk to you more. Bert's been enjoying the early goose season. Kill them all. Kill all those big flying rats. Mike says 18th is the open heart surgery. Oh, man, good luck to you, buddy. Hey, Vance. John. All right, Vance. Vance is talking to John Kramer. John Kramer, disabled vet. Vance Gowell, Salt of the Earth guy, says, John Kramer, you have a special hunting spot up here on this farm anytime. Send him a message. See, I got goosebumps right now. This is the type of thing that makes hunters, in my opinion, the salt of the earth. Steve finally made it to Rapid River. My wife were impressed. Wow, what a store. Bought a knife and some clothes. Highly recommend. Oh, crossbows. Here we go. And one of the things that has diluted the hunting season as a whole is crossbows. That's right, because crossbows are a tool of the devil. Crossbows are a poacher's tool. Crossbows are only used by those who aren't physically strong enough and talented enough to shoot a compound bow. Oh, I could do 3 hours on the comments here today. Well, John, I sure hope you don't use a compound, because if you're against crossbows, you better be using a longbow that you cut from a sapling and whittled it down yourself. First time I ever saw a crossbow was when I was sitting next to Fred Bear. Fred Bear didn't have a problem with crossbows, but John Kramer does. Oh, maybe I'm just a little feisty this morning. I don't know. Let me tell you who's coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine. Jake, good morning. How are you? Jerry says, way to step up, Vance. Vance is one of those guys who does step up. This week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, Ken Dalton talks about the Michigan Pheasant Hunting Initiative. Pheasant season is coming up soon. Then Kevin Pritchard of Jay's Sporting Goods. I was up at Jay's Friday. I took my crossbow, my devil's tool, my lazy man's tool, my old man tool. Speaking of tools, I took my crossbow up there to have it looked at, and they said, Avery, you need new strings and cables. That crossbow is 5 months old. That's how much I've been shooting that thing. I needed new strings and cables after 5 months. So keep in mind, you buy these new high-tech, powerful crossbows, and you better be willing to swap out strings and cables on a regular basis, and it's not cheap. Anyway, Kevin's going to talk new strings and cables. Then Al Stewart in hour number 2 talking about small game season. He's talking about upland bird hunting and more. Justin Tomei from MUCC. This week's Ask Avery segment. Where do you need a recreational passport? Is it all state land? And can a licensed hunter shoot a feral dog or a feral cat while you're in the wild? Get the new DNR director on. Brent says, well-placed feistiness. Get the new DNR director on. To get you going, Captain, if you owned a couple hundred acres of property, paid a couple $1,000s in land taxes, you might feel different about the youth hunt. Okay. Just because it's a youth hunt does not mean that they didn't care about kids. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, okay. And then Tim Roller, and of course, Wild Game Chef Dixie Dave Miner. And I might be a little feisty this morning, and maybe I'm a little bit over the top, and I will acknowledge that. I have been called I can't say it. I've been called. I've I've been called a lot of things. Uh, you can shoot feral animals, just don't tell anybody. Yeah, true. Yeah, and if I am a little bit rude this morning, I will apologize for that. But I have passion. No, I don't know anything about what's going on at Jay's anymore. 6, 5. Blast off. Doug says, I like you, feisty. I can be abrasive. I can be rude. I can be obnoxious. And I acknowledge that and I accept that. It's all based on passion. I have a passion for this outdoor lifestyle. I have a passion for this tradition of the outdoor lifestyle. I have a love for hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping. That's where my feistiness comes from. So I would ask that you would forgive me that. Although I'm not really asking for forgiveness, I guess. All right, my friends, have a good day. I'll be back tonight, 7 o'clock, for another edition of Wednesday Night Live. If you want, stick around and hear me record the show. Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. And so glad to have you along with us as we continue this journey into and through the most wonderful time of year, in the opinion of many people here, and that is fall. It's not technically fall yet, though, is it? Not according to the calendar, but we can feel it. We can feel it. And it's all good. It's wonderful. Hunting season's now pretty much in full swing. Well, getting to be in full swing. Great fall fishing to be had as well. I was out last weekend with my grandson Carter for the youth hunt. We were hunting at my buddy Scott's place. I've told you before, Scott's very generous and allows us to hunt there, and I do appreciate that. We didn't see anything. We had one morning to hunt because Carter's 16, and this is the last year of the youth hunt, and he now has a job. So we only had one morning, Saturday morning, to hunt. I had Carter stay over at our house that night so we could get a good start on things, a good early start on things. And that way I knew he was out of bed because I'm the guy who woke him up. And it was an absolutely gorgeous morning. It was a cool morning. It was a calm morning. It was a clear morning, and it was beautiful. We were sitting in a Wraith 270 see-through ground blind from Primal Tree Stands over a food plot that Scott had put in on an area that has a lot of deer. Scott's only request was, you can't shoot a buck. He said, I don't care how big the buck is. He says, if the biggest buck, Avery, of your life ever walks in front of Carter, I don't want you to shoot it. I'm good with that, man. It's your property, whatever you want. He says, I only want you shooting does, which, by the way, I am a huge supporter of the youth hunt, but I do believe it should be does only where that's possible. We didn't see anything. Didn't see a thing. So we hunted the youth hunt. I say we. Carter was hunting it. I was there with him. But he didn't take a deer this year. And that's okay. And I stressed to him that is okay, that you're not going to harvest an animal or catch fish even every time you go out. It's part of the process. It's part of the experience. You still have the same anticipation. You're watching the edge of the woods. You're watching the edge of the food plot. As it gets light, you think you can see deer moving. You put the binoculars on them. No, it's just my imagination. It's just my anticipation. It's just my excitement. But that's okay. In looking at the numbers for the combined Liberty Hunt and Youth Hunt, which was last weekend, the Liberty Hunt is physically challenged hunters are allowed to get out early, and the Youth Hunt is, of course, kids are allowed to get out early. Now, people say, oh, the Youth Hunt is going to decimate some people say. It's going to decimate our state's whitetail population. These kids are out there shooting everything. Well, the numbers from the DNR, and these are based on the hunter reported harvest numbers. And we've never had numbers this early in the season, so, I'm in favor of this. A total of 5,303 animals, deer, were taken during the Liberty Hunt and the Youth Hunt in the entire state of Michigan. 5,000 deer. 4,000 of those were bucks. And looking at the pictures sent to me on my Facebook page, some of them were nice, big, beautiful bucks. The numbers are broken down by county. The number one county for the Liberty Hunt and the Youth Hunt in Michigan last weekend was Sanilac County, followed by Tuscola County, Montcalm County, and then Saginaw County. I also find it interesting, looking at these numbers, that in the opposite end of the spectrum, the slowest counties were at opposite ends of the state, geographically and demographically. Wayne County had one buck checked in for the Liberty Hunt and the Youth Hunt, and Keweenaw County didn't have any. Now, I don't think these numbers mean much of anything. They're just interesting to look at. 5,000 deer taken during the entire Liberty Hunt and Youth Hunt. So for people who say, oh, it's going to decimate the population, well, you can take that criticism off the list. This weekend, as you're hearing the broadcast version of the radio show, is the early doe season in Michigan. So if one of your complaints was about, well, hunters shouldn't be in the field before whatever, pick your date, are you also against the early doe season? I'm not a supporter of the early doe season to the extent that I am the youth hunt, that's for sure. But maybe you're out this weekend chasing small game. Small game season's open now. That's something that often gets overlooked. That's how most of us started. That's how I started. Sitting in a woodlot behind the farm at the base of a tree on a beautiful fall afternoon hunting squirrels. And then when wintertime came around and snow, we were chasing rabbits. And those are still great, wonderful, viable outdoor activities now. But they kind of tend to get overlooked. I did have another interesting experience. I was up at Jay's last week for their anniversary sale, and I took my new crossbow up there to get it looked at. Now, last spring, for the spring turkey season and my spring bear hunt in Ontario, I bought a new crossbow. I'd been shooting Dartons for years, and I love Darton crossbows, but I wanted a bow that you could decock. I didn't want to have to shoot it at the end of every hunt every night. I wanted to be able to safely decock it. So I got a 10-point, and I really like it. It's a very nice machine, and I'm calling it a machine, a tool. But one of the things with these new high-tech, powerful crossbows, you have to keep a real close eye on them. There's so much energy stored in there. If your strings or cables start to get squirrely, you want to make sure to get them looked at and probably replaced. Now, I routinely go over my strings with a string wax or a string lube or something to try to keep them as pliable as I can. But I did notice that they were starting to look just a little bit rough. Now, how could that be after just 5 months? I bought the thing in April. So I took it up to Jay's and said, hey, would you just take a look at it? And they came back to me and said, yeah, you need a whole new set of cables and a new string on a bow that's only 5 months old. Now, I do shoot that probably more than many crossbow shooters do because I like it. But the new strings and cables were not cheap. So just keep in mind, if you buy one of these new crossbows, be prepared to maybe, once a year? In my case, it looks like twice a year, have them swapped out. But it's not something that you want to overlook, that's for sure. While I was up at Jay's, I did buy myself a new tree stand. I bought a new Primal, what was it called? The Mac Daddy 22. If I'm going to be in a tree these days, it's going to be in a ladder stand. My days of climbing up screw-in hooks. And what do we call screw-in hooks in a tree? To be blunt, what do we call them? Gut hooks. Because if you slide down that tree, that's what's going to happen. So these days, I'm going to preferably be in a ground blind, probably one of my beloved Wraith 270 ground blinds, or at least a ladder stand. So I did buy a new ladder stand while I was up there. They had a sale on them, so I got a little bit better price. Speaking of sales, if you're looking for broadheads for the upcoming bow season, Rec Broadheads, I like those guys. A Michigan-based, family-owned, manufactured in Michigan. Use the promo code Avery15. That's Avery15, Avery15. Get 15% off on your order. Go to recbroadheads.com, recbroadheads.com. I have not been fishing. The Angler Quest, she's so mad at me. She's still sitting at the dock. I'm sure she's covered in spiders, maybe some leaves starting to fall on her, and she's cursing my name. I'm sorry. I'm doing my best. I'll try to get back out there. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show after the break, Ken Dalton, the pheasant, is going to join us to talk about the upcoming pheasant season, the Michigan Pheasant Hunting Initiative. Then Kevin Pritchard of Jay's Sporting Goods talking more about this idea that don't ignore these crossbows or even your compound. You still have time. You got to get them looked at. Maybe need new strings, new cables. You got to be safe out there. In hour number 2, Al Stewart talking about upland bird hunting in Michigan. Our state is a wonderful destination for upland bird hunting. Then Justin Tomei from MUCC checks in. This week's Ask Avery segment, we're going to answer 2 questions. Where do you need the recreational passport tag on your license? Is it all state lands? And the second question is, if you're out hunting and you're a licensed hunter and you see a dog chasing deer or a cat hunting, can you legally shoot it? And in our third hour, Tim Roller talks about casting crankbaits for steelhead and salmon in the rivers. And, of course, we wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner. My name is Mike Avery. The website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com. The email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Don't forget about our live streams. I do at least 2 every week. Behind the Mike segment, live from the Outdoor Magazine radio studio every Wednesday morning at 8:45. And a Wednesday night live every Wednesday night at 7. I hope you can join me there. Well, that was an awkward transition on my part. All right, my friends, thanks for joining me. I hope you can be back tonight at 7 o'clock for Wednesday Night Live, where we'll talk about many of these topics. Maybe by then I will have chilled out a little bit. Maybe I need to slow down on the coffee this morning. And maybe not. Maybe that's just the way it is. All right, my friends, have a great day. We will talk with you again tonight, 7 o'clock on Wednesday Night Live.